The morning sun rose over the village of Dehua like it had done for the past 50 years. The light touched the rice paddies first, making the water between the green stalks sparkle like diamonds. Taman walked along the narrow path between the fields, his boots making soft sounds in the mud. He was thinking about the irrigation system. The monsoon season was coming, and some of the channels needed repair. Dehua was not a large village. 300 people lived there, maybe a few more if you counted the babies born this year. The houses were simple but strong, built by hands that knew how to work with wood and stone. Every family had a garden. Every garden had vegetables growing in neat rows. The children went to school in a building at the village center, where Hyejin taught them reading, math, and the history of their world. This planet, Sabyok 7, was a colony world. Humans had come here 2 generations ago, looking for peaceful places to farm and live. The soil was good. The weather was mostly kind. The people of Dehua worked hard, and the land gave them food in return. It was a simple life, and that was exactly what they wanted. Everything changed when the ships came. They appeared in the sky just after noon. 5 massive warships, their metal hulls blocking out the sun. The Velkari Empire had arrived. Taman stood in his field and watched them descend. His heart beat faster, but he kept his face calm. Around him, other farmers stopped their work and stared upward. A shuttle landed in the village square. Soldiers came out, tall creatures with gray skin and 4 arms. Their leader stepped forward and spoke through a translation device. His voice was flat and cold. This region has been chosen for a military installation. You have 3 hours to gather your belongings and leave. Transportation will be provided. Taman walked to the square. Other villagers gathered around him. He looked at the alien commander and spoke quietly. We need more time. Give us 1 week to harvest the crops and prepare properly. This is our home. The commander's face did not change. 3 hours. That is final. The people of Dehua gathered in the community hall. It was a large room with wooden beams across the ceiling. Taman stood at the front, but he did not make a long speech. He simply asked a question. Who wants to leave? Some hands went up. Families with very young children. People who were too old or too sick to fight. Taman nodded. Go, no shame in choosing life. We understand. Then Soman stood up. She was the oldest person in the village, maybe 80 years old. She leaned on a wooden cane that her husband had made before he died. Her voice was strong despite her age. My husband is buried under the oak tree by the stream. My daughter is buried under the willow tree near the school. This is my home. I will not leave it. If they want this land, they will have to take it with me still on it. One by one, people stood. Hyejin stood. Donghae, a young farmer who had lost both parents to sickness last winter, stood. Mirai, who had been a soldier once before she came to farm, stood. Even young Jinwoo, barely 16, stood beside his uncle. 200 people stayed. 100 left on the transport ships. There were tears and hugs. Families split apart. But everyone understood. This was choice, not judgment. When the 3 hours ended, 200 people stood in the village square. The Velkari commander looked at them with something like surprise on his alien face. You are making a mistake, he said. Maybe, Taman replied, but it is our mistake to make. The ships left. For a moment, the villagers thought perhaps the empire would simply go away. Then the message came over the communication system. It was a different voice this time. Harder. Angrier. This is High Commander Vectus of the Velkari Imperial Fleet. You have defied a direct order. The Empire does not tolerate defiance. You have brought this upon yourselves. Taman understood immediately. Everyone! Into the cellars now. The farmers ran. They knew their village. Every house had a cellar for storing food through the winter. The school had a shelter underneath, built years ago in case of storms. They scattered and dove underground just as the first plasma blast hit. The sound was like thunder that never stopped. The earth shook. Dust fell from the ceiling of the cellar where Taman huddled with 30 other people. Someone was crying. Someone else was praying. Taman just listened to his home being destroyed. The bombardment lasted 20 minutes. Then silence. Heavy absolute silence. They waited. Taman made them wait 3 full days. The air in the cellars grew stale. They had water and food, but not much. Children whimpered. Adults sat in darkness and thought about what they would find above. On the 3rd day, Taman climbed the stairs and pushed open the cellar door. Dehua was gone. The rice paddies were glass now, melted by the heat. The houses were ash and burned wood. The school was a crater. Bodies lay in the ruins. 53 people who had not made it to shelter in time. Taemin saw Hyejin fall to her knees beside what had been her classroom. He saw Donghae standing where his family farm used to be, his face empty of all expression. 147 people survived. They stood in the ruins of their village and looked at what the Empire had done. Somin walked to Taemin. Somehow, impossibly, she still had her cane. She looked around at the destruction and then at the survivors. "What do we do now?" someone asked. Taemin was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, and his voice was steady. "They tried to erase us. They killed our friends, our family. They burned our homes. They thought that would be the end of it." He looked at the faces around him, farmers, teachers, grandmothers, teenagers, not soldiers, not warriors, just people who wanted to live in peace. They were wrong. "We are still here, and now we teach them why erasing humans is impossible," Jinwoo called out from near the edge of the destruction. The young man was kneeling beside a piece of twisted metal. "Taemin, come look at this." It was a Valkyrie observation drone. It had crashed during the bombardment. Parts of it were melted, but the core was intact. Jinwoo's hands moved over it carefully. "Can you fix it?" Taemin asked. Jinwoo looked up. His eyes were red from crying, but now they had something else in them. Something hard and determined. "No, but I can make it work for us instead of them." Taemin smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who has decided to fight back. "Then that is where we start." The survivors of Daehwa gathered what little they could salvage. They moved into the forest at the edge of where their village had been. They had no weapons, no training, no real plan, but they had something the Empire did not expect. They had survived, and surviving was what humans did best. 2 weeks after the burning, the Valkyrie returned. This time they came to build, not to destroy. Large transport ships landed on the glass that used to be rice paddies. Construction machines rolled out, and within days, a military base stood where Daehwa village once was. Captain Kelvar walked around the new base with satisfaction. The walls were strong, the weapon systems were online. 50 soldiers patrolled the area. Everything was efficient and organized, exactly as the Empire liked it. "Any sign of survivors?" he asked his second officer. "None, sir. Scans show no human life signs within 50 kilometers. The bombardment was completely effective." Kelvar nodded. He felt a small discomfort about what had happened, but he pushed it away. Orders were orders. The primitives should have left when they had the chance. In the forest 3 kilometers away, Taemin watched the base through salvaged binoculars. Around him, the survivors lived in caves and makeshift shelters. They were thin from eating only what they could forage or catch. Their clothes were dirty and torn, but they were alive, and they were learning. Hyejin sat beside him with a notebook. Her photographic memory was their greatest asset. She had been watching the base for 12 days straight, recording everything. "The patrols change every 6 hours," she said quietly. "Always 3 soldiers. They follow the same path every time. They stop at the north corner for exactly 5 minutes because there is a blind spot in the cameras there." "Creatures of habit," Taemin said. "That is good for us." Jinwoo had been working on the crashed drone for days. He had no proper tools, just rocks and salvaged wire, but slowly, impossibly, he was making it work. Taemin did not understand how. The boy just seemed to know things without being taught. "Their security is very good," Jinwoo explained one evening. "It would stop any Valkyrie hacker, but they designed it thinking everyone would hack the same way they do. I am using completely different methods they never imagined." "Can you break into their systems?" Taemin asked. Jinwoo smiled. It was the first smile anyone had seen since the burning. "I already did. Last night I made their coffee machine stop working. They spent 2 hours trying to fix it." Despite everything, people laughed. It was a small thing, a stupid thing, but it proved something important. The mighty Valkyrie Empire could be touched, could be annoyed, could be beaten. Mirai organized the survivors into groups. Some gathered food, some built better shelters, some trained in basic combat using sticks and rocks. She had been a military medic before retiring to farm, and those old skills came back quickly. "We are not trying to win battles," she told them. "We are trying to survive and make them uncomfortable. Every day we survive is a day we win." Donghae became their weapons maker. His hands, which had once planted rice, now built traps and snares. He used Velkari power cells that Jinwoo stole through hacked supply drones. He created spring-loaded nets using wire from the ruins. He was quiet while he worked, speaking to no one. His grief turned into focused purpose. 1 month after the burning, they were ready for their first attack. 3 Velkari soldiers walked beyond the base perimeter. They had gotten careless. The area seemed completely dead. Nothing ever happened. So when they found an orchard that had somehow survived the bombardment, they stopped to pick fruit. "This is good," one soldier said, biting into something like an apple. "Maybe this assignment will not be so boring after all." He did not see the tripwire. None of them did. Donghae's trap triggered perfectly. Nets made from their own supply cables wrapped around the soldiers. Power cells delivered shocks that knocked them unconscious before they could even reach for their weapons. The survivors dragged them deeper into the forest. When the soldiers woke up, they were tied to trees. Mireille had already treated their injuries. Soman had left food and water within reach. Taemin stood in front of them. The soldiers looked terrified. They had seen the reports. Everyone in this village was supposed to be dead. "We are the people of Daehwa," Taemin said in their language. Yejin had taught them basic Velkari. "You tried to erase us. You killed our families. You burned our homes. But we are still here." One soldier found his voice. "You are going to kill us." "No," Taemin said. "We are going to let you go. We want you to carry a message to your captain. Tell him that Daehwa remembers. Tell him we are still here. Tell him that this land is ours, bought with the blood of our children, and we will have it back." The soldiers looked confused. Yejin came forward and showed them photos she had saved. Pictures of the village before the burning, children playing, families eating together, the school, the gardens, the life that had been destroyed. "These were real people," she said quietly. "Not targets, not obstacles. People with names and dreams and families. Remember their faces." They released the soldiers after 3 days. Mireille made sure they were healthy. Soman gave them food for the journey back. The soldiers stumbled back to base, confused and shaken. Captain Kelvar listened to their report with growing anger. "You are telling me that dead farmers captured you and then let you go?" "They were not trying to hurt us, sir," one soldier said. "They wanted us to understand, to see them as people." "It is propaganda," Kelvar snapped. "Psychological warfare. Do not fall for it." But the damage was done. The soldiers talked. Word spread through the base. The enemy was not really an enemy. They were farmers who had lost everything. Farmers who showed mercy even when they had every right to seek revenge. Jinwoo's hacking became bolder. Drones crashed during routine flights. The base's heating system would randomly shut off at night. Supplies disappeared from locked warehouses. Nothing dangerous, but constant. Annoying. Unsettling. Soldiers started seeing things in the forest. Shadows that moved wrong. Hearing sounds at night. Finding small markers left by the survivors. Toys from dead children. Photos of families. Reminders that real people had died here. Morale dropped. Soldiers requested transfers. Some had nightmares. The mighty Velkari military was being defeated not by weapons but by guilt and fear, and the persistent presence of humans who refused to stay dead. Captain Kelvar sent reports to High Commander Vectis. The responses were always the same. Find them. Eliminate them. End this embarrassment. But how do you fight an enemy who knows every tree and rock? Who strikes and vanishes? Who turns your own technology against you? Who makes you feel like a monster instead of a soldier? 3 months after the burning, Vectis sent special hunter units. Elite soldiers trained to track and kill. They arrived with the best equipment and absolute confidence. Taemin watched them arrive and smiled. Good. Let them come. We have something to teach them about hunting humans. That night, Donghae's traps caught 2 hunters. Jinwoo's hacking led a patrol into a ravine. Hyejin's knowledge of the terrain let them ambush a squad in a narrow canyon. And always they took prisoners and released them with food, medical care, and photos of the dead. The hunters lasted 2 weeks before they withdrew. Their commander sent a message that Kelvar kept secret. These are not normal insurgents. They fight like they have nothing to lose because they truly have nothing to lose. They show mercy to make us question our orders. They are adapting faster than we can respond. Request permission to withdraw and use orbital bombardment. Permission denied. Vectus would not admit that farmers had defeated his best soldiers. He sent more troops instead. In the forest, the survivors grew stronger. They learned to fight, to hide, to strike without warning. But more importantly, they learned something the Empire had forgotten. They learned that the human spirit, once awakened, cannot be put back to sleep. 6 months had passed since the burning. The survivors of Dewa had changed. They moved differently now, quieter and more aware. Their eyes were harder, their hands steadier. They were no longer just farmers. They were something new. The forest camp had grown more organized. Mireille trained people in combat every morning. Jinwoo ran hacking sessions in the afternoon. Hyejin taught strategy in the evenings. Even Soman contributed, using her lifetime of knowledge to teach them which plants could heal and which could poison. They had help now. 3 Velkari soldiers had defected. The first was a young soldier named Thelon, a scientist who had been studying humans. She came to the forest one night with her hands raised. "I cannot do this anymore," she told Taemin. "I studied your species. I warned my commanders that humans were more dangerous than they believed. They ignored me. Then I saw the photos you showed our soldiers. I realized I was helping to destroy people who just wanted to live in peace." Thelon brought intelligence about Imperial movements and weaknesses. She helped them understand Velkari psychology and tactics. She became one of them. Captain Kelvar did not defect, but he was captured during a patrol. When Mireille brought him to the camp, he expected execution. Instead, he got medical treatment and a quiet conversation with Taemin. "You pressed the button," Taemin said. "You gave the order to bombard our village." Kelvar said nothing. What could he say? "I should hate you," Taemin continued. "My friends died because of you. Children died. But hate takes energy, and I need that energy for other things." He paused. "Tell me, Captain, when you followed those orders, did you ever wonder if they were right?" Kelvar was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "I told myself that orders were orders, that primitives should have obeyed, that the Empire knew best." He looked at the survivors around him, thin, tired, but unbroken. "I was wrong. They kept him prisoner for 2 weeks. But they treated him well, fed him, let him see how they lived, let him understand what he had tried to destroy. When they finally released him, Kelvar walked back to the base a changed person. That night, Taemin gathered the survivors. "We have learned to survive. We have learned to fight. Now it is time to do something bold, something impossible." He pointed toward the base. "We take it. Not destroy it, take it. Use their own buildings and weapons and systems against them." Mireille looked skeptical. "That base has 50 soldiers. We are 147 people and not all of us can fight." "Exactly," Taemin said with a small smile. "They will never expect it. That is our advantage. They planned for 3 weeks. Hyejin mapped every patrol route, every shift change, every weak point. Jinwoo infiltrated deeper into their computer systems. Donghae built new weapons and devices from salvaged materials. Thelon provided insider knowledge about Velkari procedures. The attack came during a shift change at dawn. That was when the base was most vulnerable. Tired soldiers going off duty, fresh soldiers still waking up, confusion in the transition. Jinwoo struck first from the forest. He crashed every defensive system simultaneously. Alarms blared, but the automated weapons did not work. The shields did not activate. Communication systems went dark. Mireille led the first team in stolen Velkari armor. They walked through the front gate like they belonged there. Confused soldiers saw what looked like their own people and hesitated just long enough. Donghae's team attacked from 3 sides with non-lethal weapons. Stun devices built from Velkari technology. Nets. Flash bombs that blinded but did not kill. The goal was not to murder but to capture. The Velkari soldiers fought back, but they were confused and disorganized. Their systems did not work. Their reinforcements could not communicate. Enemy soldiers appeared from nowhere wearing their own armor. 3 hours later, it was over. The Velkari flag came down. In its place, the survivors raised a banner they had made from burned cloth. It showed a single rice stalk growing from blackened earth. The symbol of Dehua, Captain Kelvar, was found in his quarters. He had not fought. He had not run. He had simply waited. When Taman came for him, Kelvar stood and offered his weapon. "I surrender," he said, "to you and to my conscience." "You cannot win," he told Taman later. "The Empire will send more soldiers, more ships. They will never stop." Taman looked around at the captured base, at his people operating Velkari computers, at Jinwu reprogramming defense systems, at Soman serving food to both human and Velkari prisoners. "You still do not understand, Captain? We already won. We survived. They tried to erase us and we are still here. Now we teach your Empire the price of underestimating humanity." The captured base became Fortress Dewa. The survivors turned Velkari engineering into their own defense. They studied the weapons, learned the systems, made everything work for them instead of against them. When High Commander Vectis learned what happened, he was furious. They took an Imperial base. Farmers took a military installation. He sent reinforcements. 200 soldiers with heavy weapons. They came expecting to crush primitive resistance. They found something very different. The automated defenses that the Velkari had built now fired on Velkari soldiers. Jinwu had reprogrammed them completely. Supply routes led into ambushes planned by Hyejin. Propaganda broadcasts played constantly, listing the names of dead villagers, showing pictures of children who had died in the bombardment. Soman's voice carried across communication channels. She told stories, recited recipes, talked about her grandchildren, made the enemy see the humans not as targets but as people, real people with lives and loves and losses. It broke something in the attacking soldiers. They had signed up to fight threats to the Empire, not to kill grandmothers who talked about making kimchi, not to attack farmers who treated prisoners with kindness. Some refused to fight. Some deserted, some surrendered without firing a shot. The mighty Imperial force fell apart not from superior firepower but from doubt and guilt, and the realization that they were the villains in this story. Vectis made his final decision. He ordered another orbital bombardment. If he could not take the base, he would destroy it. Destroy the humans. Destroy the embarrassment, but the humans had Velkari shields now. They had early warning systems. They knew the bombardment was coming hours before it hit. They evacuated through tunnels Donghei's team had been digging for weeks. They took supplies, weapons, and every piece of useful technology. They even took the Velkari prisoners, refusing to leave them to die. The bombardment destroyed the base. The Empire celebrated, thinking the problem was finally solved. Then Taman's message broadcast on every frequency. His voice was calm, almost friendly. "High Commander Vectis, you have destroyed your own base. You have killed no one. We are still here. We are the farmers of Dehua. You tried to erase us. You burned our homes and killed our families, but we survived. We learned. We adapted, and we will keep surviving no matter what you do. You cannot destroy us. You can only make us stronger." He paused, then added, "Come, try again. We will be waiting, and every time you try to kill us, we become harder to kill. That is what humans do. We survive." In the ruins of the base, smoke rose into the sky. But in the forest, in hidden caves and tunnels, 147 humans planned their next move. They had gone from victims to survivors to fighters. Now they were ready to become something more, conquerors. News of Dehua spread across human colonies like fire through dry grass. A farming village had survived orbital bombardment. They had captured an Imperial base. They had turned the Empire's own weapons against it. The story seemed impossible, but it was real. Other human settlements started their own resistance. Nothing big or organized, just small acts of defiance, refusing orders, hiding supplies, sabotaging equipment. The spirit of Dehua was spreading, but Taman was not waiting for help. He gathered his council in a cave deep in the forest. Maps covered the walls, stolen from Velkari systems. Hyejin had marked every Imperial installation in the sector. They tried to erase one village, Taman said. Now we show them that erasing humans is impossible. We do not wait. We do not defend. We attack. Mirai looked worried. We are 147 people. They have millions of soldiers. We do not fight their millions, Taman replied. We fight their supply lines, their communications, their confidence. We make them afraid of every shadow. They had captured 3 small Velkari ships during the base raid. Not warships, just transport vessels. But Jinwoo had modified them, made them harder to detect, made them faster, made them theirs. The raid started small. A supply depot on a mining colony. They struck at night, took weapons and medical supplies, and left before anyone knew they were there. The only trace was a burned cloth with the rice stalk symbol of Daewa, then a communication relay station. Donghei's team disabled it without killing anyone. They left all the soldiers tied up with food and water. And photos. Always photos of the dead children of Daewa. Every raid followed the same pattern. Take what they needed. Avoid killing when possible. Leave evidence of who they were and why they fought. The message was clear. We are not terrorists. We are people who lost everything. Remember that Jinwoo's skills had grown beyond anything they imagined. He was not just hacking systems anymore. He was infiltrating the entire Imperial network. Not breaking it, infiltrating it. Like a ghost in their machines, I change little things, he explained to Taemin. Supply orders get sent to the wrong places. Intelligence reports have tiny errors. Nothing obvious. But it adds up. They are spending more time fixing problems than fighting us. Captain Kelvar, who now worked fully with the humans, helped them understand Imperial procedures. He gave them access codes, explained how orders flowed through the chain of command, showed them where the Empire was weak. Why do you help us? Taemin asked him one day. Kelvar looked at his 4 hands, remembering when he had used them to press buttons that killed children. Because you showed me mercy when you could have killed me. Your people treated my wounds and fed me while my empire burned your families. I know which side deserves my loyalty now. Theln brought important news one evening. Her contacts in the Imperial Science Division still talk to her. High Commander Vectis is coming here personally. He is bringing his command ship, the Dominant Fist. It is the most powerful warship in the sector. Everyone went quiet. The Dominant Fist could destroy a continent. It had shields that could stop any weapon. It coordinated the entire sector fleet. So we take it, Taemin said simply. Mirai laughed, then realized he was serious. Taemin, that is impossible. They said we could not survive the bombardment. They said we could not capture their base. They keep saying things are impossible, but we keep doing them anyway. Planning the operation took weeks. It required everything they had learned. Stealth from forest fighting, technical skills from months studying Velkari systems, psychological warfare, and the pure human trait of attempting the impossible because nobody told them they could not. Kelvar knew when the Dominant Fist would arrive. Thel knew its internal layout. Jinwoo knew its computer systems. Donghei built special equipment for boarding a ship in space. Heejin memorized every detail of the plan. They would infiltrate during a fleet exercise, pretend to be maintenance crew. Jinwoo's fake credentials were perfect because he had created them using the Empire's own security systems. 20 humans would board the most powerful warship in the sector. The day came. The Dominant Fist hung in orbit like a metal moon. The survivors wore stolen maintenance uniforms. Their hearts beat fast, but their hands were steady. The shuttle docked without problems. The guards checked their credentials and waved them through. Just another maintenance crew doing routine work. Nothing suspicious, they split into teams. Donghei's group went to engineering. Mirai's team moved toward crew quarters. Taemin and Jinwoo headed for the bridge. They walked calmly like they belonged there. The secret to infiltration was confidence. Jinwoo reached a computer terminal and plugged in a device. His fingers flew across the keyboard. I'm in their systems. Give me 5 minutes. Those 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. Velkari crew members walked past. Any one of them could sound an alarm. But they saw maintenance workers and ignored them. Just part of the background. Done, Jinwoo whispered. I have control of internal security. Cameras show empty corridors. Alarms are disabled. We are ghosts. The assault was controlled chaos. Donghei's weapons stunned rather than killed. Mirai's team secured crew quarters quickly. They bound soldiers with their own equipment. Treated injuries immediately. Made sure everyone knew they were not there to murder. Hyejin's voice came over the ship's communication system. She spoke calmly, clearly. We are the survivors of Daehwa. You burned our homes, killed our families, tried to erase us from existence, but we are still here. And now we own your ship. Taemin reached the bridge. High Commander Vectis sat in his command chair, surrounded by officers. They were staring at their screens in confusion as systems locked them out. Vectis turned to see farmers in maintenance uniforms holding weapons. His face went through several expressions: shock, disbelief, horror, understanding. "This is impossible," he stammered. Taman smiled. He was tired. His farming clothes were old and patched. He looked like what he was, a simple man pushed too far. But his eyes were hard. "You keep saying that word, Commander, but we keep doing impossible things anyway. That is what happens when you try to erase humans. We do not disappear. We adapt. We survive. We win." Vectis reached for a weapon. Taman shook his head. "Do not. We have already won. Your ship is ours. Your crew is secured. Your systems are under our control. You have one choice. Surrender with dignity or we drag you off that chair." The High Commander of the Velkari Imperial Fleet stood slowly. He unbuckled his weapon belt and let it fall. The sound it made hitting the floor was the sound of an empire realizing it had underestimated humanity. Within 3 hours, the dominant fist belonged to Dehua. The most powerful warship in the sector was controlled by farmers. Jinwu sat in the communications chair and sent a message to every Velkari installation in the system. "This is the dominant fist. Command has transferred. We are the people of Dehua. You tried to erase us. We survived. We learned. We adapted. And now we own your flagship. Think about that." In hidden caves across the sector, humans heard the message and cheered. On Imperial installations, Velkari soldiers looked at each other with new fear. If farmers could capture the dominant fist, what else could they do? Taman stood on the bridge and looked at the stars. Somewhere out there was the Velkari homeworld, the capital, the heart of the empire. "Set course," he said quietly. "We are going to teach them a lesson they will never forget." The dominant fist hung in space, silent and powerful. Inside, the survivors of Dehua faced a choice. They controlled the most powerful warship in the sector. They had High Commander Vectis as a prisoner. They could negotiate now, go home, rebuild their village, declare victory, and live in peace. Taman called a council meeting in the ship's conference room. It was strange seeing farmers sitting in chairs designed for Imperial officers. Solman had brought her ceramic jar of kimchi somehow. Even here, in a warship millions of kilometers from home, she made sure people ate properly. "We could go home now," Mirai said. "We have proven our point. We survived. We fought back. We won." Hijin shook her head. "Have we? They killed 53 of our people, children, families. They tried to erase us because we were inconvenient. If we stop now, what stops them from doing it again to another village?" Solman spoke quietly. Everyone listened when Sumin spoke. "My grandchildren are buried in glass back home. The Empire chose to burn us rather than simply move their base somewhere else. We have shown them we cannot be erased. Now we must show them the cost of trying." Taman looked around at his people. Tired, worn, but unbroken. "We march on the capital. Not for revenge. Not for conquest. For justice. And to make sure they never underestimate humanity again." Using Vectis's command codes, they took control of the sector fleet. Ship by ship, they sent messages. Kelvar helped. He knew these captains. Had served with many of them. His message was simple and honest. "I am Captain Kelvar. I led the attack on Dehua. I ordered the bombardment that killed children to prove Imperial power. Then these humans captured me. They could have killed me. Instead, they showed me mercy. Treated my wounds, fed me. Made me see them as people, not targets." He paused. When he spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. "I have seen our empire's honor twisted into oppression. I have seen peaceful farmers forced to become warriors. And I have seen humans display more honor in defeat than we have shown in victory. I stand with Dehua now. Join us or stand aside, but know that the humans are right and we have been wrong." Some ships immediately defected. Others argued but eventually joined. Some refused and withdrew. But within days, the survivors of Dehua commanded a fleet. Not through fear or force, but through truth and the realization that they represented justice. Thelon worked with her contacts across the empire. She broadcast the full story of Dehua. The peaceful village. The unreasonable demand. The bombardment. The survival. The fight back. She showed the photos that Hiejin had preserved. Made the Empire see the faces of the dead. More ships joined. More soldiers defected. Not all, not even most. But enough. Enough to make the journey to the capital possible. Enough to make the Empire afraid. The fleet jumped through space toward the Velkari homeworld. It was a strange fleet. Velkari warships commanded by farmers, former enemies working side by side, humans who wanted peace but were willing to fight for it. Empress Navaris received reports of the approaching fleet with disbelief. She was young for an empress, having inherited the throne only 3 years ago. She had always trusted her military to handle problems. Now her military was in rebellion. Her most powerful warship was captured, and farmers were coming to her homeworld. How did this happen? She demanded of her advisors. Nobody had a good answer. How do you explain that trying to erase a village created an unstoppable force? How do you admit that mercy and justice proved stronger than military might? The home fleet mobilized, planetary shields activated. The capital prepared for war. Everyone expected destruction, revenge, blood. Instead, the fleet stopped just outside weapons range. Then Taemin's voice broadcast on every frequency, every screen, every communication device across the entire planet. We are the survivors of Dewa. You tried to erase us from existence. We crossed stars not for revenge, but to show you what you created when you chose destruction over diplomacy. The broadcast showed footage, the village before the burning. Children playing in the rice paddies, families harvesting together, Hyejin teaching in her school. Life, simple, beautiful life. Then the bombardment, the fire, the destruction, bodies in the ruins, survivors emerging from cellars into ash and death. Then the fight, the learning, the growth. The impossible victories, the mercy shown to enemies, the justice sought not through murder but through persistence. We do not want your world, Taemin continued. We want our home back. We want recognition that humans deserve the same respect as any species. We want a promise that this will never happen again to any village anywhere. He paused. The screen showed the names of the dead. 53 names. 53 people who wanted nothing but to farm and live in peace. You made us fight. We did not want this. We wanted to grow rice and raise families. But you gave us no choice. So we survived. We adapted, we won. Now accept the consequences of your actions. Across the Velkari homeworld, people watched. Soldiers watched. Politicians watched. They saw not monsters or terrorists, but farmers who had lost everything and refused to disappear. Empress Navaris faced a choice. She could fight, use her home fleet, maybe win, but win what? A battle against people seeking justice? Victory over farmers who showed mercy to their enemies? Or she could do something unprecedented, something her ancestors never did. She could admit the Empire was wrong. She lowered the planetary shields and sent a message. Come, I will hear you. We will talk. The survivors of Dewa took a shuttle to the surface. They wore their farming clothes, patched and burned from their long fight. Taemin led them. Soman walked beside him, still carrying her ceramic jar. They walked into the Imperial Palace, one of the grandest buildings in the galaxy. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, gold everywhere, the symbols of an empire that had conquered 100 worlds. And through it walked farmers, dirty, tired, unimpressed by the grandeur. They had seen their children die. Fancy buildings meant nothing to them. The throne room fell silent as they entered. Empress Navaris sat on a throne carved from a single piece of crystal. She was young, beautiful, powerful, and facing people who had every right to hate her. Taemin bowed respectfully, not out of fear or submission, out of the simple courtesy one person shows another. Empress, we did not want this. We wanted to farm, to live in peace. You could have built your base anywhere. Instead, you chose to burn us, to erase us, to make us disappear because we were inconvenient. He gestured to the people behind him. We stand in your palace not because we are warriors, not because we wanted to conquer, but because we had no choice. You tried to erase us and we refused to be erased. That is all. Navaris looked at them. Really looked. She saw not threats but people. Grandmothers, teenagers, teachers, farmers. People who should have lived simple lives but were forced to become legends. What do you want? She asked quietly. Taemin pulled out a piece of paper. It was burned at the edges, wrinkled, but the words were clear. Hyejin had written them. We want our land returned. We want protection for all human colonies. We want a memorial with the names of everyone who died. We want the Empire to acknowledge what happened and promise to never do it again. He paused. And we want you to help us rebuild what your empire destroyed. Navaris stared. That is all? You command a fleet. You could demand anything. Soman spoke for the first time. Her old voice carried through the throne room. We are farmers, child. We plant things and make them grow. We are planting a future where no one else suffers what we suffered. That is worth more than conquest. The Empress of the Velkari Empire sat back on her crystal throne. She thought about her ancestors who had built this empire through force. She thought about the farmers standing before her who had beaten that force through simple refusal to die. She stood and walked down from her throne. Face to face with Taman, equal to equal, your terms are accepted. All of them. And I add one more. The village of Dewa will have a permanent embassy here in the capital. Not as subjects, as equals. As a reminder of what happens when power forgets mercy. She gestured to the throne room. This room saw my ancestors conquer 100 worlds. Today it belongs to farmers who refuse to be conquered. The title to this palace transfers to Dewa. Once a year, your representatives will sit on that throne and conduct village business here, reminding the empire that military might means nothing against the human spirit. Taman looked at his people. They nodded. It was done. They had crossed stars, captured warships, faced an empire, and won not through destruction but through persistence and justice. Outside word spread. The war was over. Dewa had won. The impossible victory was complete.